Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to Future Proof, the podcast where we decode how CEOs, founders, and execs are working smarter by using AI, data, and automation. And most importantly, we focus obviously on the AI aspect. If you're looking to future-proof your business, you're definitely in the right place. And before we dive in, if you're a founder, leader, C-suite exec, and you're feeling the pressure to grow with leaner teams and constantly developing all the changes around AI, we help clients not only be more efficient with their teams and their operations, but really focus on the growth aspect. So if you're just looking to find out how we may be able to help you, or just want to know more about doing a free AI audit, we're happy to help. There's links in the show notes. 15-minute, no pitch. We're here to partner and help. Anyway, let's dive into today's episode. I'm joined today by Brett Ayres, the CTO of Tenio. Brett, thank you for joining.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we always start with the leader's journey. So talk to us about your background leading up to becoming CTO at Tenio.
So I actually first started working in IT back in the late 90s, just kind of sort of pre-millennium bug when that was all you had to say to customers to get them to open their checkbook and place orders.
Yeah, that's true.
I sort of worked my way up through there. And I joined Tenio about 12 years ago now. I was initially running our sales team in the UK. I then moved across to run our pre-sales team globally. I was then involved in setting up an SD-WAN, which became a SASE practice later on. I then was involved in the services business for a bit. I then ran product for a while, and finally I ended up as CTO. Not sure whether that's because they don't know what to do with me, or because I kind of covered lots of different areas of the business and able to bring that kind of mix of commercial and technical skill to the role.
Excellent. And so tell us about Tenio, right? I mean, what you guys do for an audience out there and kind of the clients you serve. Yeah.
So as a business, we kind of see ourselves as a specialist integrator of next generation technology. We play predominantly in the networking, network security and observability space. And
by the way, great space to be in going forward, right? Nothing more than where emerging tech is going to be and cybersecurity and all that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do is we look for sort of new and innovative technology that fits into those areas, and then the ones that we think, real distance and offer real value, we'll kind of specialize in, and we will take those to our customer and look to de-risk the investment in those by bringing sort of very specialized knowledge in those technologies. We play predominantly, I would say, with what I would call kind of top end of mid-market, bottom end of enterprise. Perhaps, companies looking to turn over around about $1 billion a year, that sort of level, maybe sort of 2,000 to 5,000 employees is probably our sweet spot. We do play with some larger organizations, and we do touch a couple of ones in the Fortune 500, for example, or in the UK, which is the other side of the business, a couple that are in the FTSE 100. But predominantly that kind of bottom end of enterprise is where we like to play.
Oh, that's awesome. So obviously you serve, a multitude of industries, right? And every industry is in, I don't know if I would call it disruption, but I would say definitely there is angst in every industry we talk to. What are you seeing, and where are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing as a technology leader, and then also just as business is changing and evolving?
Yeah, I think there's probably three main challenges that I could probably kind of generalize across our customer base. The first would be security. It's a constant threat. It's constantly evolving. It's a constant game of cat and mouse for our customers.
Now give the bad actors AI and then it gets way worse, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then coupled with that is probably resourcing of that. So the challenge to find and retain good people in that space. Great for us because obviously we're augmenting customers' security teams with kind of managed services and professional services offerings as well. So great for us, but a struggle for them. And lastly, the AI piece. There seems to be a lot of pressure coming from boardrooms we have to do something with AI. Nobody knows what that something is.
We hear that on every podcast. Yeah, you're exactly right, Brett. And the worst part is it's not like, hey, let's reimagine or figure out where it in the core it fits in, but just to say we have it at least bolted on, right? Which is the worst thing you can do. And we've seen a ton of companies do that just to say that they're AI powered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for obviously we're dealing predominantly with kind of infrastructure operations teams, cybersecurity teams, and they're saying, well, we've got this new thing, and the risks are all the same. The risks haven't changed; they've evolved
If
slightly.
anything, it went up.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting this bigger attack surface now out there. So, how do we go and, if we want to spin up an MCP server, how do we secure that? Where do we host it? How does that work? What about these new protocols like MCP or A2A? How can we monitor those? How can we check that our data and our IP are being protected, not being shared to chatbots without some sort of DLP around it? There's all these sort of problems. There's nothing new in the problems, but they're just it's another level that's thrown on top of it. Right. From teams that are already struggling to keep up with the challenges.
Yeah. And so that's basically at the technical level. What else are you seeing? Because I think you're right. I think one of the things that we hear across the board, or one of the major themes is, and you hit on two of them, is security and risk management. And number two is talent shortages. Right. And so all this is going to get harder. So as you start to look down the road, one, where do you see the biggest challenges that those pose? Right. And then number two, I think that there's opportunities, right? Especially for a company like Tenio.
Yeah, definitely. For us, the bit where I think the most opportunity exists is in that kind of augmentation piece as well. I think certainly, we've seen a lot of interesting developments from the technology front, especially in the security world as well. So these are AI powered things. When I think AI is great when you feed it a whole bunch of data, it's able to look for patterns and anomalies and do all that. And I think that certainly helped reduce down the number of kind of false positives, and it's certainly kind of lightening the load. But at the same time, when there is a problem, there's a risk, the complexity that sits behind it's become a lot greater. So that the need for those kind of higher level analysts is much greater. And of course, the cost of those individuals to attract them and to retain them, it's a real struggle for a lot of organizations. I was speaking to one of the major banks the other week, and they're saying they've got graduates fresh out of the universities coming to them demanding six-figure salaries with no experience, because it's that's what they're expecting us, and that's what the industry is paying in certain locations.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's going to be I don't know the right words to say it, but you're right there, because I've seen that, right, where they're going to overpay for junior level people, and then what does that do to the workforce in general? Because again, you're going to have people on staff that have been there for years, and they're like, wait a minute, right? So I think there's going to be a shuffling and a movement, right, like we've never seen. And I just think as the baby boomer generation starts to retire off more and more, we're losing a ton of valuable knowledge, right? And I think that there's not enough resources to fill that gap. And I think that people are betting on we can train some AI to at least capture that knowledge somehow. And I think that's one of the use cases that we see, is that businesses and companies, they need to start doing that. Sooner rather than later, right? Is building those repositories, those SOPs. Because you've seen it a thousand times, I'm sure, is that there's just knowledge in people's heads of they inherently know how to navigate something, but it's not, if that doesn't get passed somewhere, then things start breaking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I'm always amazed, we go and talk to customers about, kind of the applications they're using, and the number of customers that are still using legacy applications, often written in long since forgotten programming languages and stuff like that. And
banks still have some COBOL stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a real challenge to recruit people into them to look after these applications that are written in these older languages. It's a problem. We do a lot of kind of cloud work with customers, and obviously migrating stuff to the cloud and that kind of thing as well. There's some of this stuff you just cannot move to the cloud. It's what do you do with that, and how do you manage it and maintain it on that traditional kind of on-prem stuff as well. So that, and having the knowledge and skills for running that infrastructure, as much as having the new kind of the new cloudy way of doing things, it's finding those individuals that got that knowledge, and that's becoming harder.
I got a question for you. So I have heard this from a number of technology executives like yourself, that there's been a shift because of the cloud infrastructure and the expensive nature of it, right, to run legacy, not mission critical, right? At mission critical, I totally get why that's up in the cloud, but that the hybrid model is making a comeback, right? Where your mission critical stays in AWS or any of the cloud services, but the legacy stuff, it's just financial metrics are not making sense. Are you seeing that shift?
Yeah, certainly. I think I said for me, there was kind of a couple of ways that customers went to cloud, and that one was the what I call sort of the more holistic view, which was proper cloud type setup versus that kind of lift and shift approach. It just became a case of moving a physical data center to moving it to Azure, AWS, GCP, or whatever. And
Right.
I think it's where it was just that lift and shift approach, and they weren't getting the full benefits of cloud in terms of that flexibility and the whole sort of scale up, scale down, and the dynamic usage and everything else. That's where I think the cost model didn't quite work out for a lot of customers, and we have seen that people bringing stuff back to traditional data centers and that kind of thing. And the other challenge where we spent a bit of time, we did a lot of work in the kind of SD-WAN, software-defined networking, SASE space, right. The ability to join it all up and get it all to talk to each other and to make sure that that's done in a secure way. Certainly when you're talking about, a global hybrid environment, multiple sites and users being hybrid as well now.
Yeah,
it's a whole bunch of different kind of challenges going on across different forms of connectivity. So stitching that all together and making it simple to run at the top level is a real challenge for a lot of our customers.
Yeah. Well, and then you throw in, everyone getting thrown into the deep end of the pool during COVID, right? And we've learned a lot in the last, 4 or 5 years. And especially at the enterprise level, right? Things they didn't think they were ready for, they had to become ready for it in a very fast thing. Tell me what you see now as you look down. Again, no one has a crystal ball, I don't think you can look past 18 months the way things are changing so fast. What do you see changing across the industries, right? Especially from a technology perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, AI is the obvious one, isn't it? In that mix, in terms of what are the use cases coming out? How's it going to affect? And I think probably looking at it kind of at the business level, the startups are coming into the market. I mean, you look at companies like GenSpark, for example, that have just got a phenomenal amount of revenue in an incredibly short space of time because they're born in AI, they live AI, versus more traditional larger organizations about the time it's going to take to adopt, to bring that in, to train their people to change processes. I think it's that for me, I can see as that will be the struggle, I think, for a lot of companies that are established. How are they going to adopt it in a quick way without losing their identity and without exposing themselves to a whole bunch of security risks versus that nimble startup that can take a few risks and say, hey, we're going to do this. And that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. Totally get it. And then for Tenio, are there things you can turn into, right? As you look at that, right? And that's, where you see things. Are there things where you guys think, hey, we play better here, right? Versus here?
Yeah. So for us, I think very much the bit that we're doing a lot at the moment and talking to all the customers about is that AI usage piece and shadow AI in particular. A lot of our organizations that we're working with have taken a more cautious view to AI, and then they've maybe got Copilot because it's part of the Office 365.
Yeah, it's just part of the suite, right?
Absolutely. But beyond that, they're quite sort of restrictive about what they're using. But obviously users who are using it at home, they want to be productive. It makes their jobs easier. They're using these applications either through a web browser or through other means. But they are potentially exposing the organization to risks. We're talking to a lot of customers about the ability to identify that traffic on the network and to control it, maybe to block it, or at least restrict it, or at least know what's going on there. And I think that's where right now, we're able to add a lot of value to our customers because we've kind of got that knowledge and we can help set that up and configure it, because we're sort of combining our knowledge of networking, our knowledge of observability and security all into one, and bringing that complete offer to a customer.
Yeah. One of the things I equate this to, and you tell me if I'm on track on this, is that I feel like when the cloud first came out, right, no one really could make sense of it, but the conversations were back then around public and private, and it was all the same things. They were worried about, what am I going to put out and expose of my intellectual property, my data, my everything? Aren't we doing the same thing with this AI right now? Isn't it the same argument, right? What am I going to keep and protect, and how am I going to restrict on a role-based, hierarchy versus what am I going to be able to use publicly available, commercially available stuff, right? It's the public-private cloud argument in my estimation. Am I close?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I was with a customer last week having this conversation, and they said, they're really concerned about Copilot usage and about people putting stuff into Copilot that is IP related or is sensitive information. But then as we got more into the conversation, it turned out that they've been using SharePoint for a long time. So in a way, they've kind of sort of given all their information to Microsoft already. So it's kind of a bit of a strange one.
Right.
But I think it's
or
just
Outlook, right?
yeah.
Right. If it's
absolutely. So I think it's just there's going to be that kind of period where we're a little bit nervous, a little bit cautious. It's the same if I go back. It was the same with internet banking. I was probably one of the first to say, hang on a minute, do I really want to, just to be able to go on a web page and access all my financial information like that? But now I use it and think nothing of it. So I think it's up to us to work with customers to help de-risk it, make it secure, give them the visibility of what's going on, and so that when it comes to auditing and it comes to all that kind of stuff that sits around it, they feel confident to use it. I think that's where Tenio can really help.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, and every organization, right, has their own challenges. What would you say for Tenio? What are your, as a company, what are your biggest challenges in the market? Is it market message? Is it getting in front of the right ideal customer? Where would you assess that?
Great question. So I think for Tenio, given that we're very specialized in what we do, I think for us it's about working with the right customers that really kind of value that specialist knowledge. Quite often we'll be competing against some of the really big boys in the market. So I mean, AT&T, for example, or BT, Verizon. Mm-hmm. Those guys, and they offer a great service to their customers. They're very sort of generalist, and they have lots of knowledge. They cover a whole bunch of different technologies. That's great. So, but obviously, we're much smaller, hence being much more niche and much more specialized. So for us, it's about finding the customers that want to work in that way and value that specialist knowledge and prepared to pay for it because they see the value in it. So that's probably our biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally get that. All right. Last question. I always ask the magic wand question. Brett, if I gave you a magic wand and you could apply it to one thing at Tenio, what would that be?
So can you repeat the question? If I could change one thing.
If change or use AI to fix one big thing or use it for one big thing, what would that be?
So I think for us, it would probably be the ability to have a way of using AI where we could get the pooled knowledge that we have across the team, certainly across my team. We've got a lot of people who've been in the industry for a long time, really deep understanding of kind of, that sort of fundamental level of, say, of networking or cybersecurity, to be able to get that information and share it with the wider team using AI or some other method, so that, when we're working with customers, they're getting that kind of level of experience, that knowledge at all times, rather than, it's a case of, we can go so far, but we need to bring in this individual, and which is what we have to do today. So that would be for me one usage.
Yeah. And I think one of the ways to do that is, I've seen a few companies begin to do this, is that they either have an internal HR or internal training staff, right? And interviews like this with internal employees and feeding it into your own internal LLM is probably the smartest thing to do, right? Yeah. Because that, again, this goes back to that initial thing we're talking about. As you're losing people to retirement and that kind of stuff, that key knowledge, you can't lose it, right? And the saving grace, I think, is that AI, if we can feed it that knowledge, right? It can consolidate it, organize it, and make it a very useful thing, right, to be shared by the team. And I think, unfortunately, and I'm sure you see it with clients today, some of my clients too are still manually searching for documents on SharePoint. And what are we doing, right? We have these LLMs that, if we train them right and feed it the right stuff, then we can, work smarter, work faster, and work better.
Yeah. And I think the other side of that challenge is about having an AI that can look at what you're doing, perhaps watch your screen. So something like perhaps, the operator within ChatGPT or in Copilot view, something of that nature, that can say, I've noticed you're doing this. Why don't you do this? Or you said that, or I can help you with this, but without going back to the very annoying paperclip that Microsoft launched. Yeah, so something that's going to help me when I'm in a problem, or maybe recommend a better way of doing something, but without being irritating. I think that's the challenge. So whoever cracks that, that's a multi-billion-dollar organization.
I totally agree. I think that's one of the big ideas. And it's so funny because I think part of what's interesting about the podcast is these ideas are out there, and it's talking through with leaders like yourself is understanding where those challenges are, and being able to collate them and aggregate them and say, well, we've talked to, 200 people and 35 have said the same thing. You know what I mean? It's that kind of really cool thing that comes out of something that we never thought of, but it's really understanding where those big challenges are, because I think they're solvable today. It's just who's going to go solve them. But not everybody knows them, right? And when you're in the day to day, it's why the consulting world is, has been so valuable over the years, right? You're flying a helicopter at 30,000 feet while everyone else can't see through the forest, right? Because the trees are in front of them, right? I think what some of the reasons we started the podcast was to bring out ideas like this, so more people can solve things. Because again, we're entering on some of these crunch areas, right, where we need to speed up some of these solutions. And I think you've laid out a couple of them. So Brett, thank you for sharing and taking time with us today.
No, it's been great, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So tell everybody how to get in touch with you guys at Tenio. I mean, we'll have all the links to you guys in the show notes, but yeah.
Best way is to hit us up on the website, which is tenio.net, and there's a talk to us button on, I think, just about every page. So please do get in touch.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Brett, thank you so much for sharing and spending time with us. And that wraps up this edition of Future Proof. And if you're looking to future proof your business, just keep watching, and we'll see you on tomorrow's episode. Thanks, guys.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.